Hello and welcome. I'm excited to announce that I've just released my first ebook and it's completely free just for you. And I guarantee if you love this show, you'll love this book. So go check it out after you finish listening at lukegreenheart.com/free. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Selfish Podcast. Today we have Lyne Frank, who I'm excited to get to know and hear her story and life. So thank you, Lyne, for being here. Can you just share with me and the audience, where in the world are you and what time of day is it for you?
Okay, I am in Canada, Ontario, a town called Grimsby. It's about a half hour, 45 minutes from Niagara Falls, and it is 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Oh, nice. I'm in the south of Spain and it's 4 p.m. for me. And I just love to hear where my guests are from. And even my audience, the audience can drop a comment and let me know where they are because I just find it beautiful that we can connect in this instant. And I always like to just remind people how amazing it is that they can listen to this and we can have an instant conversation. You know, it's a beautiful time to connect and share.
Yeah. It is actually one of the advantages to technology because sometimes I curse it quite a bit, but the human connection is definitely a positive for me.
Yeah, well, I spent years and years not using, like I'd use digital products, say, and do things for work as such, but I was off all social media. I was just like, I didn't want to touch it. But it wasn't until I really felt like I had a passion and something that I wanted to share because I could see it would make a difference to people and I could be of service. And then when I was in that state, I was like, you know what? It's here. It's available. I'm just going to use it for the best means I can and not take advantage of it and not use it for anything destructive for myself. So I just use it now to really put positive messages out and share and connect with people. So I really appreciate you for being here to connect with me in this moment.
I'm happy to be here.
And what I like to do with my guests to get to know them more personally is to go to their childhood and hear about their life. So can you paint me a picture of what life was like pre 10 years old? What did your parents do? Where did you grow up?
Okay, I love this journey. My father is an immigrant from Italy, and my mother is French Canadian. So she grew up in Quebec. That's a province in Canada where the mother tongue is French. So growing up, my mother only spoke to me in French. And we grew up, I have two sisters. I'm the oldest of three girls. And a pretty normal, if you will, childhood. My mom stayed home to raise us. My dad worked. Unfortunately, he lived to work. He kind of got that backwards. And at the age of 33, passed away in a work accident. And so I grew up in a home of four independent, strong women. And that journey obviously keeps evolving, but has allowed me to, live life to its fullest and stay active in my community because living with a single mom, you became dependent on neighbors for car rides and social gatherings. And so I'm a true believer in it takes a community to do all things.
Oh, nice. And yes, I think most people have had a touch of it in the last 2 years, but I think we're a very social creature, you know, we live to be with others. I think it's a form of punishment to be isolated, you know, just what they use in prisons for the ones that have been really bad. They get isolated even from prisoners and they don't like it. So I think, yeah, the community is vital. And what was school like for you? What was school life like in your childhood?
I went to an all French school. So that was a different experience. It means that I had like a group of friends in my neighborhood, and then I had a school group of friends because I had to be bused to the French school. And because that was a smaller community, we shared busing with a school called Holy Spirit, and they were from the Ukraine. So those children we talked about French culture. They talked about the Ukrainian culture. And so that was neat. I think that was probably the first time I was like, oh, people do things differently. It exposed me to what is really around me. I had never given that any thought. High school, I went to an all-girls high school, which I loved. It wasn't private. It was the last public high school that was all girls, and the all boys school was across the street. And I loved that experience because, again, the universe served me. I was able to grow up and be educated in an all women environment. And so it really has given me this, I think, unique perspective on the power of women. So, yeah. And then I went to university. When I graduated, I was pissed off. I was so mad that I was going to have to get a job that I left to travel. And I traveled Europe solo, and then came home. I did my postgrad in public relations. I worked in that industry for a couple years, and then decided I wanted to be a teacher. So I moved to Australia with my fiance. I did my master's of education there. And now I've been teaching for 20 years and doing a side hustle, empowering women.
Nice. And I'm really interested with the language side of things, because like you said, you went to an all French school and your mum spoke to you in French. So would you say like French was your first language? Is that what you was most fluent in the start of your life?
Yes. Yeah. I started speaking English when I was 3. So my mother tongue is French. And I will say, when I was in grade 7, my dad did send me to Italian school. So I hated it. It was a really hard experience, actually, because most of those children spoke Italian in their home, and we didn't. And they had been going to the school for years, and I started late. So that was a good kick in the pants on learning to speak Italian. And so, I did. I took it. That encouraged me to, motivated me to take it in high school. And so,
Oh, nice. What's your first words in French then? If you've been told what your first word was?
Oh gosh, I have no idea. Probably what most first children's words are: mama, papa. Yeah, and just on a side note, I spoke only French to my own children. So I have 2 kids now, and because French is, part of my culture and my heritage, and I live in an English-speaking community, I knew it would be important to instill that language in them right from the beginning so that it becomes a part of who they are. So for the first 2 years of my children's lives, I only spoke to them in French, and they also attended an all French school.
Oh, okay, because in the UK we have the option, not the option, it's part of your structure in sort of when you're about 10 years old, I think you learn French as another language. Hello. Sorry, someone just walked past me saying hello. And and yeah, so that's a nice thing here when you're in the countryside. People just stop and say hello or good day, even if you look busy.
Yeah, it's nice.
But it's nice.
That's community. That's community.
It's so different to where I was from in England. It's unbelievable. You look the other way, you don't interact.
Yeah, look down. Yeah, and, Now I would imagine that's gotten worse. But I just on a side note, in Canada, you do in grade, you do go. There are French core classes that students do go to, but the all French schools are separate from that. All the subjects are taught in French, where the English public schools, you get a period a day of French.
Yeah, I think ours was like a period twice a week, maybe even, of French.
Okay. Yeah. So it works similar to that.
Yeah. And then when we went to high school, or what we call secondary school, it was then you get the choice. It's like, oh, do you want to continue French, or do you want to now learn Spanish instead? And some kids, it was like an option, could learn German. They had to have a really good reason. And then for the ones that would like you had to excel in maths and the language you was doing, and then you could add Latin on top if you wanted. But that was for the rare few. I was doing terrible in French. So I got to school and I was like, do you know what? I've already done 2 years. I'm going to stick this out and I'll choose that as my language. And I could never get, I just could never get it. It never worked out so well for me on that. It just,
Yeah, it can picking up a language can be difficult. I know. It can be tricky. I remember thinking how lucky I was when I was learning the Italian, that so much of it was similar to the French grammar, and I thought, oh, I really should be learning Spanish as well, but I have yet to cross that bridge.
yeah, well, I'm still trying to learn Spanish at the moment, but I've realized now that I'm older, I can look back and it's something I didn't realize I had is I have like what someone would call dyslexia. I don't like to
Yeah.
label myself with anything, but I see words very differently, and I've always jumbled up sentences and read signs backwards. And like, I remember my brother always laughing. He's like, "You're able to change a word in a way that I didn't think is possible." And he goes, "Now I've forgotten what it is." And and I think that was my obstacle when I was trying to learn French. I just couldn't put the words together in the text because I can repeat the sound. The sound is okay, but when it's through text, I
Yeah.
just couldn't get anywhere with it. So no, that's
Yeah.
interesting. And do you remember the first thing, like the first dream or ambition or desire of something when you was really young that you wanted to like do, be, or become?
I don't know about really young. Um, I'm still very good at living in the moment, but I do know when I realized that if I didn't start, this is like early 20s, like that time where I realized, oh man, society wants me to get a job. Okay, I'm out of here. I did start living by a to-do list, and but one that was self-created. So I can't really remember dreaming wildly about becoming something. But as I age and am more certain with who I am and what I believe, I do dream about becoming an activist and speaking in front of crowds of people. So not as a child, but later in life, actually, which I think is kind of cool because most people lose the ability to dream wildly and believe they can. It's almost as we age, our imagination dwindles and our belief in what is possible um, has boundaries around not only our comfort zone, but like what we think is realistic. And I would say that has been the opposite for me. So I feel lucky in that way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for the most part, it's normally the opposite way around. Like you say, when people get to
Hmm.
almost 30, if they haven't achieved whatever their dream or desire was, it's like there's no point having dreams and desires anymore. This is the way it is. This is the way it's going to be. And they sort
Yeah.
of shut themselves off. And I think a big part of that is because I've always been really ambitious and had lots of dreams and stuff, but I
Yeah.
went through the stage of realizing I had all these expectations, and when they didn't get met, then you're met by the disappointment, and you have to sort of
Mhm.
rewrite your story. I was still able to realize and come to a thing that is, I don't need the expectation to be met, but I can still dream and enjoy the ride. And if it happens, great. If it doesn't, I'm going to feel great on the way either way. And that's where I set myself now. It's like I'm not set on my expectations that it has to become this way, but that doesn't mean
Yeah.
I'm not going to go for it. And then that takes all the pressure off. I found.
Oh, yeah, I love that. That's actually huge this year. You know, pick a word, pick a mantra, something to focus on. What are you gonna, 2022, what is that about for you? And forever. Like I sat in stillness for like weeks. I'm talking like it took me, I usually can come up with a focus pretty quick, and I could not. And then I realized it's really what just talking about there. It's, I know it sounds corny, but all about the journey. And I decided that, okay, this year I'm really going to, have an expectation, whether I reach it or not. I'm just not going to, I find, what am I trying to say here? I'm going to follow the universe. I'm going to let her guide me. So rather than being ego driven or, so focused on this one expectation that I think I'm supposed to achieve, I'm going to turn right and left when the universe invites an opportunity. And you're right. Like the amount of stress that releases from the process is unbelievable, life changing, really, because now you're just going with the flow and it feels better.
Yeah, I think that's like you're saying, what happens to most people, like the opposite you went through is they build up all that resistance over years and that pressure weighs down on them. And then they can't, like I said, they can't use their imagination anymore than just to maintain day by day activities.
Yeah.
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 What comes to mind first? Not the biggest, not the worst, but what just comes to mind first when I ask, what was your what was your first struggle in life? Like, what comes to mind first?
Mm, body image,
Okay. Did you find at
weight.
that time when you was going through that motion, did you find anything that gave you support in that? Was there any activity or anything you'd done that you found helped you during that time?
Mm, I don't know that I felt help around that issue for a really long time, but I remember clearly the summer of grade 6 when
What age would that be? Sorry, just for us European.
oh, yeah, 12. I was about 12
Okay.
when I decided I had to be skinny and started hating my body and working out and eating celery sticks because I had read celery sticks are so low in calorie. By the actual chewing, it's like you're eating nothing at all because you burn the calories while you are chewing on the celery stick. Nonsense like that. I don't know that I recognized that it was um, going to last as long as it did, but I do know that it was common and that it's a serious issue for women of all ages who deal with body shame and a lack of self-worth because of their appearances. And so I guess the emotion, that's Luke, that's a good one. Um, just not good enough. Would probably, if I'm sitting down, I can imagine myself. I remember the house I'm in. I remember the kitchen table. It's the summertime. And I can picture myself right now, like eating that bowl of tomato soup, my sisters putting crackers in it, me wanting to put the crackers, refusing. In my neighborhood, there was a hill. I would run up and down that hill, so desperately wanting to look different for September when school started again. And I'm going to be 46 now. I would say loving my body is something that I've learned to do, within the last decade.
What do you think sparked that shift, that change a decade ago?
It was after having children. I would say uh, might have been like the peak of the dislike for my body. So I think that when you hit a low
Mm.
and the only alternative is, well, in my opinion, the only alternative is to go up. And so yeah, it's kind of like I hit rock bottom. And even though, like, so amazed with what my body was able to do and give birth and life, and the human body is amazing, and I knew all that. Like, I'm not, um but damn, I wanted to look good in those jeans. So yeah, I think what changed it was having a daughter. That's, yeah, yeah. It's she, your children make you want to be a better person because you really are their greatest influence for a long period of time. Not always. I'm sure that'll, change, but um, while they're becoming who they're becoming, their time is with you. And when I had a daughter, I knew I didn't want her to, you know, have body shame or issues the way I did. And I also was not naive to the fact that the external world would be putting that pressure on her. So home had to be a place where you love your body. And that meant if I was going to do that authentically, that meant I had to do a lot of work.
Yeah, no, I can relate to it in a different way. I didn't realize I had sort of that body shame until I went through a certain process where it was the way I see it is I became like an internal dictator, and
Mm,
I was always into like fitness and health. And I tell you briefly, I don't know how much of my content you've seen, but my mother was a single mom with two kids, and she developed severe schizophrenia in my childhood. So I had a really abstract childhood, and it was caused me a lot of trauma, a lot of depression, and suicide issues. And then through my teens, I found boxing and fitness, and this was somewhere to get out that anger. And then
mm,
but the number one thing I wanted for myself was control, because I was told by doctors like, oh, this could be genetic. This could just happen to you one day, that you just lose your sanity completely. And that was terrifying. And I was
yeah.
like, you know what? I can't drink. I can't take drugs. I've got to be in control in all moments. And that sent me down another path. And but I started to be really into my fitness and my health and obsessed with my food, obsessed with training, to the point it was unhealthy, because I think any obsession is unhealthy because you're doing it out of sort of the wrong intentions. And I led that into being like self-abusive to my body. I would be angry at my body. I would punch my body that
Mm,
it wasn't behaving the way that I wanted it to. Like it was, like you said, it wasn't good
yeah.
enough.
Yeah.
And then it took like time and it took other practices, but I found that I had to like build that relationship back up. I had to separate my identity from the body and realize it's mine, but not me. And I'm here to take care of it and to love it and treat it right and respect it and, nurture it. And I had to go through all that process and build techniques. I'm really interested, like, what processes and techniques did you find to build that relationship back up with the body?
Well, I could tell you now okay, when I started that, you realizing, okay, I had to do some work. The first thing I did is change, who I was looking at. Um, and recognizing that there are confident women who don't have the body I thought you needed to have to be confident. I attached that to confidence and self worth. And I intentionally interrupted that thought pattern with, who else is out there? And um, recognizing that lots of women were doing lots of cool things despite their body. So even though that's wrong, that is for me how it started. Thinking, oh, they could do that even though they look like this, like that was really where I was. It's a terrible trap and judgment. That the piece one of the pieces I definitely had to work on is not to be judgmental towards others, but also myself. And I like what you said, my body is mine, but not me. I would say that rings true for me too in the process of accepting my body. Now, when I get out of the shower, I take a cream, whatever it is. I'm always switching it up, but I'm massaging the body and giving it thanks. After my yoga practice this morning and my Pilates yesterday, I just take Shavasana and I lay. And instead of, I'm intentionally giving thanks to my body for the work that it just did, for what it allows me to do every day. And so I almost speak to it as though it's separate, which is why I like when you said, it's mine, but not me. When you could kind of see it as separate, your body doing all of these things, you become grateful. And through that gratitude, is appreciation, and you really do start to love your body. And I think it responds to you, like when I'm massaging and, like I'm relaxing my body, um, and I feel that it makes me feel good. So it's giving back.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it's an obstacle or an issue that I see in a lot of people, that they've become so demanding on their body. The way I see it at the
Hmm.
moment is like I don't identify with the body, and I also don't identify with my mind. That's also mine, but not me. And that carries my thoughts, but they're not me, because we have thoughts that appear that you also look at when if you're aware enough, and you laugh at them. Where did that come from? Like
Yeah.
that's just an imprint of experiences, but it's not something I chose. It's not something I want. Something just
Yeah.
happened, and then you spend time cleaning that up. So make that mind a nice experience with nice thoughts floating in. Um, but again, I identify as the witness within that sets the intention. And that sets the intention, and then that can manifest into action and direction and go where then. But you have to build a harmony between that mind and that body. And I see like mine, the best way I could explain it is the mind had become like a narcissist state. There's a term I don't like using because it's too popular now. And the
I
body
know.
become
Yeah.
like a codependent. I think that's just relatable for people at the moment because it's
Mhm.
them words seem to be floating around in the last year so much. Um,
Mhm.
but it was like that, and the mind was dictating, and the thoughts were aggressive and demanding, and the body would just cave in. It wanted to do everything to please that mind, and it was just
Mhm.
dying in the process and struggling. And it was like an abusive relationship, and it was like it's got no, it can't detach from it, so it has to just suffer. And I realized that process of it. It brought me to tears when I was going through my process and realizing this as I was giving that love back. And I also noticed that the body was also didn't trust the mind. It was like, oh, you're saying this, you're doing this. But until I started applying actual actions, and I think it's like a relationship. If I was with my love now, Danielle, and I said to her every day, I love you, I love you, I love you, but I never touched her, never caressed her. And sometimes a touch is more powerful than a word. And the
Mhm.
same with a parent. If a parent just said to the child, I love you all day long, but they never gave them a hug, would that child really
Mhm.
believe they loved them?
Mhm.
And that's like what I put a lot on the YouTube channels about the self-love practices that I do and stuff, and how important touch is. And like I love that you're saying just the appreciation and the touch of yourself when you're putting oil on, or you're giving actual nurture and intention at the same time with touch. I think that is a key development process in rebuilding that harmony within.
Yeah. That is a beauty. You might want to listen and retell that story just in a short clip maybe, because that really is a beautiful example of mind body connection, which is something people will also connect with. Yeah.
Yeah, I think my very first podcast, I titled it, and I'm actually going to put it into a little book form, like a free ebook, and then maybe make a bigger book as well. But I called it the
Okay.
WTF method. Yeah, because it's witness thoughts, feelings, and going through that process. And it was through that's how it worked for me. And mine happened in isolation and trauma that I had to go through this. My outside world was crumbling in pieces, and my love was dying in my arms. And it was like in this process is where I got to find that space and that connection inside to build that harmony back up. And again, it's not an easy process, but 20 years of depression to unwind itself in a few years, to me, is fast. And I've
Mhm.
noticed that with people with addictions, with people I've interviewed who've had years of trauma, years of
Yeah.
issues or whatever, and they feel like, oh, it did take a long time. And I was like, how long did it take? And they're like, well, 3 years for me to get where I am. I was like, wow, that's fast. Only 3 years. You're done. It was going wrong for 30.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah. I'm just, as you're saying that, and all I'm hearing is comparing, 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 right? It's so hard not to do, to compare ourselves to someone else's achievements or timeline, or, what they were able to do. And, it's hard because we think if they can, I can. And yet when we do that, we self-sabotage, because then we're again focused on this like expectation rather than flowing with the experience the universe is trying to serve you.
Yeah.
And who knows, it taking you longer, what lessons you would not have received had it only taken you 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah, in this
Yeah.
case, they say it's a hard place for people to. The beginning process is a tough place, but it's a beautiful place
Hmm.
when you look back on reflection. So it's sort of like it's at the time someone might be going through struggles and it's ups and downs. Um, but when you go through the other side, it's like same as going to university or something. When someone really wants a degree, they'll remember some really tough times, but once they get that degree, they really appreciate the hard work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm really interested how the last 2 years, speaking of hard work and life, the last 2 years has been an intense and odd one that I think everyone has been affected by in some way, in some form.
Mhm.
How has the last 2 years been for you, sort of like in your internal process as well as your external world?
Oh, Luke. You know what? Um, as the pandemic hit, when I turned I'm not going to make this too long, but when I turned 40, I'm 45 now, right? Almost 46. When I turned 40, I did start to have more time to myself. We could do another podcast on motherhood, but motherhood kicked my ass in my 30s. And I hardly remember that decade. And when I turned 40, my children were older and I had time to stop and think and reconnect with, who Lynn is and what did she want. And it was a lot of just sitting alone in my bedroom. And then I started reading and I started writing. And I remembered this goal that I had when I was 21 and I started traveling. I had decided I was writing a book and it was going to be called What's the Rush? And I started writing. And I realized when I came home, what I was actually going through was a quarter life crisis. And I don't know, you spoke earlier tonight about, not wanting to be labeled. It's true because as soon as I was labeled, I was like, oh, I'm going through a quarter life crisis. Oh, well, okay. I never really gave it more thought than that because then all of a sudden it became kind of normal, like people knew about it. And although I continued to write the book, I fell in love. And many of you could probably predict what happened next. I fell in love. Then, that's when I did, the master's. That's when I got a job. That's when I bought a house. That's when I got, had 2 children. And in that process of doing what I thought I should be doing, really living by age, I disconnected with that book and all the other goals I had set for myself as an individual. And finally wrote a book called Ignite and Circle. And had to rewrite the book. Yeah, I won't get into that, but the book became a program because I realized I didn't want people just reading. I wanted them doing, I wanted action. And as I was releasing my program, the pandemic hit. And the program for me is really meant to be done in person. So I was able to hold a few sessions. It's a 7-week program where we come together in circle. And, but then I had to go online. And that was hard for me. And then the whole isolation piece and to be vaxxed or not vaxxed. And now I wasn't just making a decision for myself or my husband, like he was making a decision for himself, but now we had children to think about. Mm. And at first we were really intentional about doing our research on to be vaxxed or not to be vaxxed. And then it came to a point where we realized that there were credible sources on both sides. And I told my husband, you know what? I just have to turn within. I'm dropping the science. I'm dropping the media. I'm just going to go with what feels right. And it was a hard decision. We sat the children down. So Gavin, when the pandemic, so he was 13, 14, 14, 15, Molly, 11, 12. And we spoke to them about, their bodies. And ultimately, we would not decide for them, but we could decide with them. And in the end, Luke, my husband and son are vaxxed, and my daughter and I are not. And I think that turned out to be so beautiful because we learned and lived by example that you really do have to do what's right for you. And, the boys were allowed to do things before my daughter and I, but we stayed true to what felt right in our bodies. And so even though my husband and son chose differently, they still got to witness and are still witnessing what it means to stand your ground on what you believe in. So I try to think of the positive. I think that's a huge life lesson that my little family got to live together. And yeah, I'm just trying to remain
Yeah, I
focused.
just wanted to add on that as well, because what I find beautiful in that is I imagine that you all have a good relationship right now. You don't all bicker
Hmm.
and fight with each other.
Oh, come on. We definitely do.
No, but like you're
There,
not in anger and hatred and protest with each other.
no, no,
Like
no. But I mean, I am the mom of two teenagers. So
yeah, the normal amount that
definitely,
you would have, whether you were vaxxed or
yes,
unvaxxed, you would have them
yes,
sort of fights. But I think
yes.
it's a nice example of unity in a time where that topic is causing so much division. Um,
Hmm.
you know, where you're showing even in your house, I think it's a good example for your kids. It's like you're still my brother, you're still my sister, regardless of your choice. You know, you can
Yeah.
still have love and respect for each other. You can still have a discussion, and yeah, you'll just bicker and fight about pointless stuff. But you're
And
not losing that.
I just, sorry, I just want to say I don't openly talk about, I try to avoid the whole topic, honestly, about being vaxxed, not vaxxed. Um, but because your questions brought me to a place of even, I was going to say authenticity, but even being vulnerable, that just kind of came out naturally. So, yeah, kudos to you.
Yeah, no, it's like I remember at the beginning of COVID, I thought, do you know, I'm going to share some thoughts, and I was noticing people getting banned and stuff online. So I was like, well, I'm not going to say
Mm,
anything controversial because I don't want to. I think to be controversial means you're putting friction into a very messy place, and you're going to bring
mm,
friction back into your life. I was like, what can I put out that's sort of resonates on both sides? So I thought I'm not sharing my opinion on whether I think someone should or shouldn't do anything. That's their choice, not mine. Um, and
yeah.
I was like, but I can share how you treat each other. Because I think I put a video up about wearing a mask, and I was like, whether you choose to or choose not to, doesn't mean you have to be enemies with the other. You know, you can still have a
Right.
life, but that anger and that judgment that I was seeing people go through, it's like that's you're holding that within yourself. It's not actually going to that person. I see people getting angry and they go home angry still, and then they'll be angry about what they've just seen, whether it's like I said, whether it's someone angry that
Yeah.
someone has been vaxxed or hasn't been vaxxed. Both sides, so much anger, so
Yeah.
much frustration, and it's like, and then you take that home, then you're
Yeah.
taking that to bed. Yeah, and it's like it's
Yeah. It brought me to a whole other experience of, sometimes, not sometimes, but as a woman, you can be judged. I mean, as a man as well, but limited. Oh, what am I trying to say here, Luke? What I mean to say is being unvaxxed, the gift in that was or is that I got to experience the hardships of judgment based on a decision. And I say it's a gift because I had never experienced that before. It's
mm,
incredibly difficult. And I could just imagine, I have the language, the education, I understand the system. And I was thinking to myself, wow, could you imagine if I was put in this place of judgment and I was an immigrant new to the country? Not fully understanding the system, not having a complete grasp of the language, how frightening that would be. And it just opened my eyes to um, the experiences that others face and have been facing based on appearance or a decision they've made, and society never really getting to know them as people or individuals. um, it was a weird feeling. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and I think that's the beauty of some of the painful events in life. And I was speaking to a podcast guest the other day, and he's my youngest ever podcast guest, and it's actually his
Mm.
mum who got him on. So I did have permission. He was 11 years old. And I thought it's
Mm-mm.
really interesting because I'm going to ask him basically the same questions. I want to hear what his earliest struggle is, and so he's not got that long of a life to talk about. So it's really interesting. He's really well spoken as well, and
Very cool.
Yeah, he talked about being bullied, and he was getting bullied and stuff. And
Mm,
we had a little conversation on that. And I was saying, like, to me, I said, I said, are you going to bully anyone? He's like, no way, I'd never bully anyone. And I was like, I said, so you've been shown exactly how not to behave and why it's so important. And he's like, yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's like, so it's like that with your judgment. It's like you've seen exactly how not to behave from the judgment
yeah.
you've received.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It's been unparalleled to anything I've experienced.
Nice. And have you found again in this time in the last 2 years during the harder times when it's tough, what's given you sort of a balance back? What's recentered you?
Time alone. My message to anybody and everybody is stillness. It's magical. I am a true believer. Everything you need to know, everything you want to achieve is within you. And it really is, do you have the courage to dig deep? Because sometimes it's within you, and it's got layers. And you have to let go. I know this sounds crazy, but we have to let go of the things that are not serving us to really find what we've been looking for. And it is nowhere except within you. We own the power. It is within us. And society just keeps reverting us to external factors, and people, um, you know, the patriarchy does a good job. It does a good job at convincing you that happiness is in all this consumer thought mentality. Luke, you know where I'm going here. And so I say the answer to 99.9 of people's problems is actually within yourself. It really is. I go back to sitting in stillness like daily. That's a daily practice, because there's always something to think about. And if you believe that I say the universe, God, Buddha, Allah, whoever is your creator, if you believe that, you know, you will receive a sign or you will feel something, if you're open to that in those moments of silence and stillness, you'll hear it, you'll feel it, your intuition will speak to you, an idea will come up, and make you reflect. But we in North America anyway, and I say we, listen, I'm a heterosexual middle class woman, so the experiences and my opinions are rooted in that perspective. But we are just convinced that we don't need the quiet, the stillness, and it's go, go, go. And I think that's how they want us to live. Because if everyone is stopped in stillness and we're being authentic and we're discovering who we really are and we're connected with our gifts and we know how to use those gifts in our community, holy shit, how powerful would that be? And at the same time would lead to a breakdown of a system that is controlling us. And so the people in charge do what they can to limit that opportunity for individuals. And so I think the most valuable thing people can do is to be with themselves.
Oh, nice. Yeah, and definitely, definitely agree with like the more time you can, like you said, witness that relationship of your body and mind and bring
Mhm.
balance to that, bring harmony with that. And that's within and that's with you at all moments. Um, and I like to share a lot on my channel because I notice the resistance that a lot of people have is there's too much going on. They've got this going on. They've got all the external problems. Like you said, there is always an external chaos, and to
Yeah.
everyone, there's no measurement. Like there's no judgment. Like someone's external chaos could be they've got a child. And then someone else will look and go, oh, you're so lucky to have a child. And it's like, that's your judging there. And it's like, no, to them,
Mhm.
that's chaos. That's they're struggling. That's hard. And that's
Yeah.
fine if that's how it is. But
Yeah.
there's moments where you can still get moments on your own. And from my personal experience, like I said, my developments and change to bring that harmony back into, and the starting process, not the, it wasn't like an instant change. The starting process happened when my life was in the worst possible place. You know, my external, I'd lost work, lost job. My partner was diagnosed, she was going to die in my arms, and I was her full-time carer. And my mum was dropping, she was committing suicide like every month for 7 months, and until she got into a hospital. And it was like everything was falling apart. And it was within that moment I had like a big suicidal episode, and something changed, and I was just like, do you know what? I'm going to find some joy and love within. And once I went down that path, I realized that that external world is only for my influence. I can be of service there, but it can't control me. The control's within, and that's all I've got a handle on, and I can learn. And there's tools and methods and so much information available out there, and so many people to connect with as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And yeah, and when you take the time to go within, you have a better idea of who you are, connections, right? That's where the community piece comes in play, because then you can intentionally seek out people that are doing what you're doing, that are aligned with your thoughts, aligned with, your morals, and you become mentors for each other. But too often we connect with the wrong people,
Yeah.
because we're seeking out the wrong things. So yeah, when you find, your people, it makes a world of difference.
Yeah, no,
But first it's within.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's something that come to me and my love Daniel were talking about the other day. What I was noticing a pattern in is how many people know what they don't want, and then they get exactly that. And I feel like it's a focus thing, like because your energy and your focus is what you
Totally.
don't want, then that's what you're going to get, because that's all you're thinking about. And some people just don't know what they
Absolutely.
want. So I think it's really
Yeah.
important, like you say, you try and spend some time alone, know what you want, and that's not
Yeah.
external. What do you want internal? And what do you
Mm-hmm.
want to serve external? And if you can find
Mm-hmm.
that place, do you know what I mean? You'll find communities and people where they have similar values, similar ideas, and you can all prosper
Mm-hmm.
together. So on that point, where is your, because it's everything's digital now, where is your
Mm-hmm.
digital space? Where can people come and check out your community and interact?
Yeah, you know what? And because we're talking about going within, I just did a 5-part series. Um, and in each, it's a 10-minute video. Uh, Audience, if you're listening, Ignite in Community is a beautiful YouTube channel that holds space for women. And there are 11 diverse women from around the world who are sharing sparks of their truth through their wisdom, but also life experiences. And on that channel, I did a 5-part series, um, me time, claiming me time, and just dispelling the 5 major obstacles that through my practice I hear women say, I can't, Lynn, I just can't. I don't have the time. I don't have the time. That's the number one. And so we work through how creating the time and debunk the myth of me time is selfish. Anyway, so igniting community, yeah, there's a beautiful collection of videos from women who are, have done that work that we're just talking about, Luke, who have
Yeah.
sat with themselves and who have an attachment to who they are and are sharing because if we could, come together as a collective, knowing who we are, then the power of that is way stronger than anything we can do by ourselves. And that's really what igniting community is about. So, yeah, you could subscribe to the YouTube channel, or if that's not your jam, there's a Facebook group. You could join that. And we have themes of the month. For April, the theme is spring cleaning. Clean out your mind, body, and closets.
Nice.
Yeah.
And with your book, you mentioned your book earlier. Is that something that's still in the process, or is that available?
You know what? Oh, no, I'm done. It's published. She's a beauty. I'm totally proud of Ignite and Circle. However, because I made it a program, I'm actually, I only sell the book when you get the book when you enroll in the program. So you can't go buy it on Amazon. I mean, it's on my to-do list, make a digital version. I'm still sitting with that because I really want it to be an experience. And the program Ignite and Circle is a beautiful balance of like masculine and feminine energy. And when I say that, it's because we cover 7 topics really that come out through the journey of, what I would say is, my midlife awakening. And one of those actually is finding the time, but space. And you do some practices at home throughout the week that I would say you're more comfortable with, that you've, might have done something similar to before. And then the power of the program is we come to Circle once a week for meditation and manifesting some visualizations, but also I facilitate in-depth conversations on one of the topics that we've covered in that chapter. And when I do that, it is through really intentional feminine leadership strategies, but also seeing whatever issue, like we talked about body image. Okay, so if that was, I pinpoint something about body image, and now we're going to dive in through the feminine perspective. And it is crazy, Luke, how many women are disconnected with not only who they are, but with their feminine intuition, gifts. And we fail to recognize that we are both. We are feminine and masculine, and it's about this beautiful balance. And so that's what the program is trying to do. It's not, poo-pooing the masculine and hey, let's, focus on what are traditionally known as feminine traits and characteristics. No, it's about, hey, I've got within me, the masculine and the feminine. And if I could bring those two to balance, then I'm more whole. And so,
no, I love that. And that's something that I've tried to get across in person to people and online. And there's always a bit of an obstacle sometimes because the concept of masculine and feminine, some people just instantly their mind goes to male and female. And you're like, you're trying to break the pattern within them and go, no, whether you're a man or a female, you're masculine and feminine. And like when I was saying to you earlier about the body and the mind, I see that the body is more feminine and the mind is more masculine. And I've also noticed that the mind at the moment in culture seems to be adored more. It's prioritized. Intellect's prioritized. Feelings aren't so. Who cares about feelings? It's all about the intellect and them properties. Like saying, everything's driven towards a high masculine state, and that's not a high male state. It's just a state within all of us that's there. And like you said, it knocks that balance out. But no, I really noticed that. So it's beautiful you're bringing that into people's lives.
Yeah, one circle at a time. I'm trying. So I'm actually excited, Luke, because now with, things reopening so I'm still doing circles once a month, but I will run Ignite and Circle again in the fall. So that's exciting. But in the meantime, Igniting Community is a beautiful space that I enjoy contributing to and invite your listeners to check out.
Yeah, no, that's very nice. And I encourage the listeners to go check it out and show some support. Even just hitting the like buttons on someone's YouTube video really does help. Dropping a comment's even better. So, no, it's been really beautiful to speak to you. I think our hour is pretty much up. I have a few just fun, quick fire sort of questions. They're just
okay,
little fun ones. But was there any last words anything we didn't cover that you felt you needed to say?
No. I think I really enjoyed the interview, or, the conversation. It wasn't really an interview. I mean, you facilitated the conversation, which is why I use the word interview. But no, I thank you. Thank you for holding space for me and for giving me the opportunity just to kind of share sparks of my truth. I hope some of what I said resonates with your listeners, maybe provokes a bit of thought. If anything, they're sitting in stillness. Try it, do it. If you haven't done it, hey, listen, I fell asleep when I started. So don't have any expectations of what that time is supposed to look like. It's supposed to look like whatever it's going to look like. There are zero expectations. And I'm I'm confident to say you'll start with 10 minutes or 15 minutes. You might fall asleep. There'll be days you skip it. There'll be days you're tempted to scroll on your phone. But I guarantee if you're consistent, you'll keep coming back. You'll keep coming back to that time. And eventually it'll be half hour, it'll be an hour. And all those excuses you have made for denying yourself the time will naturally have solutions. You'll work around it, because if you want it, it is available for you.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. I'm just going to ask you these quick questions. If you had to choose one, cat or a dog?
Cow or a dog?
Yeah.
Oh, a dog.
What's your favorite color?
Navy blue.
Do you say navy blue or maybe blue?
Navy.
Okay. What excites you? What motivates you? What turns you on?
Dancing in a drum circle.
Yeah. And what does the opposite? What shuts you down?
Dark energy.
And I may know the answer from the question a minute ago, but what sound or noise do you love?
Yeah, the sound of a drum and the sound of my children laughing.
Oh, nice. And what sound or noise do you not love so much?
People chewing with their mouth open.
What do you love about yourself?
I was gonna say I'm pretty vocal, and that's what came to mind right away. But I'm also learning that if I want my message to be heard, I almost need to rein that in a little bit. So I struggle there. What do I love about myself? I'm not shy.
Okay, nice. And what do you love to see in other people?
Particularly women, like in the workplace. Um, when people gather and chit chat about something they want to see differently, and then we have a meeting and all of a sudden my voice is the only one heard. I hate that. It's like, I know you're thinking what I'm thinking. Either at least support what I'm sharing, or please use your voice. When I see people holding back, I'm quickly frustrated.
And what do you love about animals? And that's the last question. And that can be pets or animals in nature. It's your choice.
Okay, so I say this to even my students. I am a tree hugger through and through. I would much rather hang out in a forest, hugging a tree. Literally, I do that daily. Than cuddle to an animal. I'm not sure what it is, but yeah. Although I could say I do have an appreciation for rabbits. My daughter, being a teenage girl, if you can just quickly think of some what we say about teenage girls, that whole stereotype, there's been some drama. And Grover, our family pet rabbit, has made all the difference. So a lot of emotional regulation in those bunny cuddles happens.
Oh, nice. And as you're the first guest that's said they have a preference more towards the trees, what do you love about trees?
I think that they bring me comfort. The other day I had a bit of a breakdown. I held the tree and I know she was holding me, with my heart pressed against the tree trunk, and I feel rooted and grounded. And she literally offers me, the air I need to breathe. And it's love for trees and really has come more through my understanding of a woman's connection to Mother Gaia. And the more I understand, how you were talking about, the man is the mind, the woman is the body. Well, we are nature, we are the tides and Um, yeah, and it comes through that. We're just connected. That's what I have to say about that.
Yeah, and I just got to just drop in there that the masculine is the mind and the feminine is the body, not the man, not the.
Yes, I knew you were going to correct me on that. I know. Yeah, totally.
But yeah, no, trees. I think they're very underappreciated. Is the way I could put it. You know, for what they give. Like we wouldn't be breathing if it wasn't for them, and even just the shade that they offer to the soil and to the earth, and the importance of the whole ecosystem there, I think is something that is growing. It is something that people are noticing now and becoming more aware to, and there's many movements on it, so it's nice to see. But yeah, it's lovely. It's been beautiful to talk to you and connect with you and hear more about your life, and I truly appreciate you just coming on and being honest and authentic and even vulnerable, as you said.
Thank you, Luke. I appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, well, I think you said it was early in the day for you, so have a beautiful rest of your day, whatever you get up to, and yeah, let's speak soon and let's stay in contact.
Sounds lovely. Thank you.
Okay, have a beautiful day. Okay.
Cheers, Luke.
Cheers, bye. Thank you so much for being here and listening to the Selfish Podcast. I'm your host, Luke Greenheart, and I appreciate you being here. Don't forget to check out my YouTube channel. Just search Luke Greenheart on YouTube, you'll find me. Check out my website, lukegreenheart.com. Have an amazing day, and stay tuned for more episodes. I'll be interviewing guests on their path of self-development, their path to self, getting to know them in much more intimacy, much more depth, sharing and connecting with all, so we can have a much more blissful, joyful, and productive life together. All right, much love. Have a great day.